The Carolina Panthers have not thrown more than 17 touchdown passes in any of the last 3 seasons. Get ready for at least 18 touchdown passes this year. Baker Mayfield is here to save DJ Moore's fantasy value, to boost DJ Moore's fantasy value. Fingers crossed. Baker Mayfield to the Carolina Panthers. Woo! All right. Adam Azer, Heath Cummings, Jamie Eisenberg. Give me a big, sexy reaction, Heath Cummings.
DJ Moore is my number 6 wide receiver, and you should draft him in the 2nd round ahead of Deebo Samuel and CeeDee Lamb.
Whoa, I didn't know you were getting that sexy. Wow, take it off. Jamie, give me some reaction here.
Yeah, I didn't expect to be the high guy on DJ Moore, but I'm not going to be the high guy if that's where you're taking him. But he's now a 3rd round receiver if he wasn't already, and should be considered a top 10 guy in PPR. Non and half PPR is going to be the interesting formats for him because of the touchdowns, and hopefully that changes. But you got to be a little bit more excited about DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey for that matter because of the hopeful upgrade at quarterback right now.
Okay, very interesting. So really, number 6, Heath?
Number 6, yeah. Listen, that might be a little bit high, but I don't know that we can overstate how bad DJ Moore's quarterback play. Now, Teddy Bridgewater did some things between the 20s that are very similar to what Baker Mayfield's done over his career in terms of yards per attempt. But Teddy Bridgewater's always been a low touchdown guy, so he fit right into that same thing. Baker Mayfield has actually been slightly above league average in that regard. Last year, in an abysmal worst year of his career, when he played 14 games and was hurt for half of them, he threw 17 touchdowns. I think they probably throw 10 more touchdown passes this year. And as Jamie always makes the good point, DJ Moore's always had a high percentage of his teams receiving touchdowns. He just didn't score very many because the Panthers never threw very many.
Wait a second. You did it again.
Adam, I did it on purpose that time.
Yes, very good. Very, very clever.
Let me ask you a question. This was Jarvis Landry's best year with Baker Mayfield in 2019. 138 targets, 83 catches, 1,174 yards, and 6 touchdowns. You know what DJ Moore did that exact same season?
No, he had what?
135 targets, 87 catches, 1,175 yards, and 4 touchdowns. The numbers are identical except for a 2 touchdown difference, essentially. And so the hope would be is that DJ Moore's talent at this point in his career better than Jarvis Landry's at that point in his career. I'm going to guess they're probably around the same age at that point. Jarvis 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and DJ Moore now. Somebody can check that if they want to. But in any event, I don't want to get too overexcited about DJ Moore. I think he might be a little too overexcited about it, but it's not far off. I mean, he's still going to be a top 10 guy for me. I do think that this helps him and hopefully pushes him to the next level.
I think also that year, Jamie, 2019. I'll look right now. I think Odell Beckham was also a 1,000-yard receiver that year. So I know Baker Mayfield at one point has given us 2,000-yard receivers, and DJ Moore is going to, you would think, dominate targets more than, So he had Landry at 1,174 yards and Beckham at 1,035 yards, and they both had over 130 targets. So, I mean, really, that was a lot more competition than what DJ Moore is going to deal with.
I did just look it up. That was Jarvis Landry's age 27 season. DJ Moore somehow just turned 25.
Crazy.
Yeah. Okay, so by putting him 6th, you're also, I'm assuming, putting him, I know you're putting him out of CeeDee Lamb. You're a little lower on Lamb, but Mike Evans, Keenan Allen?
I've got Moore, Allen, Evans.
Wow. All right.
That's bold, baby. That's sexy. You want it sexy. He gave it to you.
That is really like, holy cows, that's sexy. So I'm about to put an NC-17 rating on this episode. So what about Jamie?
McCaffrey's number 1 for you then now, right?
In the projections, McCaffrey is number 1. I think it's a risk decision that you should make. I think Christian McCaffrey is probably more likely to get hurt than Jonathan Taylor, but Christian McCaffrey has more upside than Jonathan Taylor too. So you have to make that decision. But I have McCaffrey 1 in the projections. I'm not sure who I'm going to settle on in the rankings.
What about for you, Jamie, DJ Moore compared to T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, guys that might go mid-round 3 after A.J. Brown, after Evans, after Keenan Allen? Where's Moore in that group?
I'm when I get to my rankings following this podcast, he will be ahead of Tyreek Hill. He will be ahead of A.J. Brown. He will be right behind the 2 guys that you mentioned in terms of Keenan Allen and Mike Evans. He's, like I said, he's not far from me, but I'm not drafting him in round 2. But I also wasn't drafting Deebo Samuel in round 2. So I love the upside. Again, it's you're looking at a guy that's been, hovering around 90 catches, hovering around 1,200 yards receiving, 4 touchdowns. If he gets somewhere bumps in those numbers, which I think he's capable of, I think you've heard me say this a lot prior to the trade of Stephon Diggs going to Buffalo, and then DJ Moore's kind of taking that mantle of, was he going to be the receiver that we never see his stats match his play? I don't know if this is the quarterback that helps him get that, but it's closer to it, certainly. I mean, Sam Darnold basically gives you no chance to have success, and that it's just an unfortunate situation. Baker gives you, if he's right, a chance to have success. It's a slight upgrade with a chance to be a very big upgrade.
Yeah, and I think, like, even looking at last year, like, we saw more target-wise, almost earned 10 targets per game, 163 targets over 17 games. His yards per target collapsed 7.1 last year. That was 1.5 yards worse than he had ever been before. 1.5 yards worse than his second worst year and now his career average. If he's in that 8.5 target range and earning 150 targets and scoring at even 6 touchdowns, he's definitely a top 10 wide receiver. It's just whether he can get that 7th or 8th, whether he can get to 100 catches.
Okay, quick counterpoint. Baker Mayfield has never thrown for 4,000 yards. He's never even thrown for 3,900 yards. So,
yeah, I've got him at 4,100, I think. But he's never played 17 games.
No, but he played 16 games twice and didn't have 3,900.
He also set the rookie record prior to Justin Herbert breaking it of 27 touchdowns in his rookie season.
He did.
Yeah.
This is a number 1 overall pick. It's not to hang your hat on those things, because obviously Darnold was a top 5 pick.
He's an upgrade, no question, but he's not.
Well, let's try it this way, Adam. 4,000 yards over 17 games is 235 yards per game. He averaged 266 in his rookie year and 239 in his second year. So twice he's been over that on a per game basis.
4,000 yards is really, for me, more of a 16 game measuring stick, honestly. Like, he, in his 16 game seasons, he did not throw for 4,000 yards.
I do not have him on a 16 game pace for 4,000 yards.
Again, I know where you're going with it, Adam, and certainly that matters. Derek Carr started his career with how many straight seasons of not going over 4,000 yards, and Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree, had certainly some big seasons, with their quarterback not being successful, which is one example. DJ Moore doesn't need Baker Mayfield to be a 5,000-yard passer to return value on this. I mean, Deebo Samuel was a 1,400-yard receiver last year. Was Jimmy Garoppolo over 1,400-yard receiver last year? Was Jimmy Garoppolo a 4,000-yard passer?
Maybe in 17 games, maybe. I don't know, but
he missed games, so I doubt he was.
3,800 in 15 games, so he certainly would have been over 4,000.
Right. So, if DJ Moore comes close to 1,400 yards based on the receptions that he should have, and let's just say he gets to 6 touchdowns, he's going to be a top 10 receiver.
6 touchdowns, top 10?
If he's getting the same targets and he's at 1,400 yards based on just the numbers that he's been averaging, I mean, that's a 100-catch guy.
Yeah. I've got him at 97, 1,402, and 7 touchdowns. If I took 1 touchdown away, he would still be like 7th or 8th.
Okay. So I think, you get to that 2-3 turn and you start looking at Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, the A.J. Brown. Jamie, you just said you're going to put him ahead of Tyreek Hill. You're going to put him ahead of A.J. Brown. Why are both of you putting him over A.J. Brown?
For me, it's the reception total. I think Brown will score more touchdowns and might have a bigger ceiling. But I think, DJ Moore's reception total, like, this is just a PPR argument. He's going to challenge for 100 catches if things go right. I don't see A.J. Brown probably topping 80 to 85.
Give me half PPR then, A.J. Brown or DJ Moore?
Brown.
I think I'll still have Moore higher. But I've got him projected for more yards. There's still also, like, A.J. Brown comes with, they've both got risk, but A.J. Brown comes with the risk that he's not been able to be the player that we think he can be over a full season yet.
Give me your thoughts on Christian McCaffrey. Does this change anything for him? I think the most catches for a Browns running back in the Mayfield era is 47. I believe. Now, of course, Kareem Hunt in 2019 had 37 catches in only 8 games. But yeah, that's the 47 is the most for a running back in the Baker Mayfield Browns era. Does this change anything?
No.
I gives him more upside.
I think the thing with McCaffrey is still the same. He get 13 plus games from Christian McCaffrey. He's probably going to be the number 1 running back. He's probably going to be the number 1 per game. He's played 10 games the last 2 years. That's the question you have to ask yourself. Is he going to stay healthy? If you feel comfortable with that, and again, I perfectly understand how hypocritical I sound that I still have Jonathan Taylor ranked ahead of McCaffrey, even though McCaffrey and Heath said the same thing. We can see where the ceiling is for him. You've seen 2 years of over 29 PPR points per game. One was a 3-game sample size. But of the 5 games that he started and finished last year, to Azer stat the crap out of this again, of the 5 games that he started and finished, 4 of those 24 or more PPR points. The upside is there. Nobody does what that guy does. And Mayfield should hopefully enhance that once again.
Okay. And I think Cam Newton did not have a good track record of throwing to running backs. And then Christian McCaffrey caught 116 passes in 2019.
Yeah, McCaffrey just completely obliterates that past throwing to running backs thing.
All right, how about Robbie Anderson and Terrace Marshall, guys? Are they on your radar now?
Well, Robbie wasn't thrilled, I think, about this move happening when it was being rumored.
Right.
So is he going to retire?
Awkward.
I just traded Terrace Marshall in the Dynasty League that Heath and I are in to Dan Schneier. And I have a little remorse, because now there's a chance for him to.
Yep.
I always thought there was a chance for him anyway, but there's a chance for him now to be better, especially if Robbie does miss any time or leaves. But these are 2 good dart throws later. Obviously, you take a chance on Robbie first,
and maybe a chance for Tommy Trimble. Ben McAdoo's offense has featured the tight end in the past. Baker Mayfield has looked towards them in the red zone. Their tight ends, or Ian Thomas, whoever is the best tight end for the Panthers, could have some real late round appeal.
Any dynasty changes? Any other than DJ Moore? Any major dynasty changes? And where are you going to put Moore in your dynasty rankings?
He was already top 12, so he'll probably be 6th or so, 7th or 8th, maybe. Low end top 10 wide receiver. And Trimble and Marshall are both guys you just make sure are stashed.
Okay. I think people in the fantasy community, it's very funny. I just got a notification that it's my draft pick, even though I don't own a team in the Dynasty League. Must be Jamie's draft pick. DJ Moore is a guy that I think fantasy analysts think is so good. And now Mayfield is a good enough quarterback, I think, where now we have to put our money where our mouth is. Right?
First off, DJ Moore is a wide receiver who has been so good. Since the start of 2019, there are 4 players in all of football who have more receiving yards than DJ Moore. They are Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, and Travis Kelce. DJ Moore is 5th over that time period with over 3,500 receiving yards over the last 3 seasons. I'm out.
He actually did have to go. So that was a terrible.
Adam, we're going to get our guy.
Mic drop. Okay. So it's time to see if we're right about DJ Moore, and all he needs is a better quarterback. Jamie, a final question for you. Are the Panthers going to make the playoffs?
I was having that conversation with a few NFL media people when the trade happened. And first question was that we were discussing, are they now better than the Saints? I would say no. They're not better than the Bucks. So you just look at their division, right? Yeah. So I don't think they're better than the Saints, but they're certainly closer.
But they could be, right? That's not a definitive one.
This is a very solid roster. They have a very good defensive line. They've tried to rebuild their secondary. The offense, I mean, you think about it. If Baker is what he was 2 years ago when he got the Browns to, within a play of essentially going to the AFC Championship game, if he's that guy again and McCaffrey's healthy, you have a legit player at the wide receiver position, as we just discussed. You have one of the best players overall in football, McCaffrey, and you have a better quarterback with a defense that's on the rise. And so when you look at the NFC and you look at the playoff contenders, you have the Rams, you have the Bucks, the Packers, the 49ers, the Cardinals, Vikings, Eagles,
Giants,
Vikings, Eagles, Cowboys, I would say. I'm probably missing one there. And I'll put the Saints in that category as well.
Washington has a chance, I think.
I think Washington has a chance. I think The Panthers now have a chance. This is going to sound funny, but I think the Lions actually have a chance. This is a team that's rebuilt themselves. Their defense can bounce back. Really, the teams that you look at and say they don't have a chance, to be honest with you, are the Seahawks right now because of their quarterback situation, and the Falcons,
and the Giants,
and the Bears.
I don't agree with the Bears. I think it's a long shot. You need Justin Fields to be awesome.
You need Justin Fields to be awesome. You need Daniel Jones to be awesome, and you probably need Baker Mayfield to be awesome. And that's where it comes down to. How good can these quarterbacks push these teams over the top? So Panthers now put themselves in position to be one of the better teams of football.
See, this is look at this.
Better than they were, not better teams of football.
This is this comment here from Terminated Account, which is a funny name in YouTube. You have to be extremely naive to think that DJ Moore is going to perform better with Baker Mayfield, having seen Landry and Odell Beckham underperform with him year after year. Well, there's something to that, right? There's something to that, but give me your take on that.
It's fair. Beckham was a shell of himself and battled injuries, and Landry, is a different kind of receiver than DJ Moore. But it's valid. You had still Beckham, as he showed last year, with better quarterback play, he was pretty productive with Matthew Stafford and the Rams, and looked, like he was building toward getting back to that level. And, we'll see what Landry has left, changing quarterbacks and going to, a different situation. But I think you also have to factor in the scenarios. The Browns were so run heavy with that team. And, I think, you got to hope. And again, it's a hope. Which Baker shows up? Is it the Baker that, I said this about Ezekiel Elliott yesterday, is always, he's playing through an injury. But when he was playing well, we didn't really focus on the injury so much. Baker was playing through some significant injuries, but he was still out there playing. And so you have to take that into account. You can't age or stat those. And so I think, hopefully DJ Moore gets the best of Baker Mayfield, but it doesn't necessarily have to be Baker Mayfield being the best of himself or even a superstar quarterback. He just has to be a little bit better than Sam Darnold, and that's going to be a pretty good receiver at a DJ Moore.
Not just that, but they're going to throw more than 17 touchdowns. Hopefully they throw somewhere around 25 touchdowns. The other thing you're missing in this Beckham Landry thing is they had each other. And when one of them was out, the other one was a lot better. There were those terrible weather games that Cleveland had, but the last 5 games of the 2020 season, Jarvis Landry was on pace for almost 1,200 yards in 16 games. That was a 16-game pace. So that's the thing about DJ Moore. He's such a target hog. And last year he was a green zone target hog. If you didn't hear the show that we did earlier today, he had 35% of his team's green zone targets. That's targets inside the 10-yard line. There were only 4 players in football who had a higher percentage of their team's green zone targets. So he's just the alpha. There's no question about it. And and this last comment here is a good one, but again, have to disagree. The only thing I'll say is Baker is going to be playing with a terrible offensive line. He's one of the worst under pressure quarterbacks.
They just upgraded in a big way.
They upgraded the entire offseason. They have one of the most upgraded offensive lines in theory. They signed Baltimore center Bradley Bozeman. They signed Rams guard Austin Corbett. And they drafted Ike Ekwonu 6th or 7th overall, I think. So I think 6th, whatever it was. This offensive line is much different than it was last year. Can't guarantee it's going to be better, but I don't think it's going to be any worse. All right, Jamie, thank you very much for your time. Hope everybody enjoyed this bonus pod. Appreciate all the feedback. Would love to hear it. If you want to email fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. That's the letter I, fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. Love to hear your thoughts on DJ Moore, on McCaffrey, on Baker Mayfield, etc. And we'll talk to you tomorrow.